the rise of the shameless and the fall of civilization, we are living through something strange, something we can feel but rarely name. It's not just political division or cultural chaos, not just economic instability or moral confusion. Beneath all that noise, there's a deeper shift happening, a quiet, corrosive unraveling of the very fabric that holds civilization together. And at the heart of it is a single word, a concept we used to fear but now celebrate: shamelessness. Something has changed in the moral structure of human beings. More specifically, in our sense of shame, our capacity to feel it, to be transformed by it, to regulate our behavior through it. Once, shame was a compass. Now, it's a punchline. Once, it was the invisible architecture of decency. Now, it's seen as weakness. And if you look closely at the trajectory of history, you'll see a terrifying pattern. When shame dies, civilization follows. Imagine a civilization as a fragile agreement. Not a contract written in law, but an unspoken one, written in the conscience of its people. It says, we will act as if others matter. We will hold ourselves to invisible standards. We will restrain our impulses, not because we are forced to, but because we choose to. This is the moral glue. This is what makes complex societies possible. Because laws don't stop people from lying, cheating, exploiting, or humiliating each other. Shame does, or rather, used to, and that's what's unraveling. We are witnessing the rise of the shameless, people who no longer blush, no longer feel remorse, people who will do anything, say anything, sell anything, perform anything, as long as it gets them what they want. And society doesn't just tolerate it, it rewards it. Think about what we celebrate today. Think about the influencers who build empires on lies, the politicians who boast about their corruption, the CEOs who destroy lives and then smile for the camera, the reality stars who turn dysfunction into entertainment, the YouTubers who fake kindness for clicks, the social media users who expose every intimate detail of their lives for validation. Do you feel how inverted everything has become? Where dignity is boring and shamelessness is a form of power. We used to hide our sins, now we live stream them. We used to apologize for our failures, now we monetize them. We used to teach children to be humble, now we teach them to build brands.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
And you might ask, what's the problem with being shameless? Isn't that just confidence? Isn't that freedom? But that's the confusion. Real confidence requires self-respect. Shamelessness is the opposite. It's the abandonment of self-respect. It's the severing of your inner mirror. And when enough people do that, a society begins to rot, not from the outside, but from its soul. Because shame, when healthy, isn't about humiliation. It's about humanity. It reminds us that we are not just individuals, we are part of something larger, that our actions echo, that our choices matter. And without that internal regulator, we descend into a world where anything goes and nothing means anything. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you saw someone in power blush? Genuinely blush? Not out of embarrassment for being caught, but out of recognition that they had crossed a line, betrayed a trust, dishonored themselves. Can you even imagine it anymore? And if not, what does that tell us? That humility has left the building, that conscience has been outsourced to public relations, that our leaders, our celebrities, our role models are no longer guided by the invisible pull of shame, but by the visible pull of metrics, followers, views, votes, profits. And here's where it gets philosophical. The death of shame is not just a cultural problem. It's an existential one, because it changes what kind of creatures we are. A person without shame is not fully human. They are something else, something less. If they are an actor without a script, a machine without a limit, a mirror with no reflection. And when a society is shaped by such people, it becomes a stage of endless performance, where truth is irrelevant, consequences are fleeting, and the only sin is being boring. But there's another cost, one we don't talk about enough. When the shameless rise, the virtuous retreat. When decency is mocked, the decent go silent. When lies are louder than truth, the truthful whisper. And what remains is a culture of noise, not meaning, visibility, not value, attention, not substance. So the question becomes, what happens to a civilization when shame is no longer a teacher, but a joke? When the guardrails of conscience are replaced by the algorithms of fame? When the loudest people are the least self-aware, and the most celebrated are the least restrained? What happens is exactly what we're seeing. A slow, steady collapse of trust, of virtue, of depth, and eventually of everything built on those invisible foundations. Because no civilization can survive when its people have no internal compass. Laws are not enough. Systems are not enough. We need souls. Souls that feel. Souls that blush. Souls that still have the capacity to say, "That was wrong. I'm sorry." And this is not about going back to some puritanical past. It's about recovering a lost wisdom. Shame, when honest, is not oppression. It's evolution. It's the voice that says, "You are better than this." It's the inner philosopher that holds a mirror up to your actions. And in a world that constantly rewards the shameless, the real revolution is to remember how to blush, and to remember that restraint is not weakness, that decency is not outdated, that integrity is not for sale. In the death of inner mirrors, how we lost the ability to reflect before we act. Civilization didn't emerge because we became smarter. It emerged because we became self-aware. The leap from mere instinct to reflection was the turning point. When human beings first developed the capacity to observe themselves, to step outside their impulses and ask, "Should I do this?" That was the beginning of ethics, of law, of art, of culture. It was the birth of the inner mirror, that invisible force inside us that doesn't just react but contemplates. The inner mirror is what makes us human. It's the part of you that watches you, that judges your motives, that holds you accountable, even when no one else is looking. But here's the tragedy of our time. That mirror is cracking, and in many of us, it has shattered completely. We are becoming creatures of impulsive action, not thoughtful restraint. Creatures of spectacle, not substance. The rise of the shameless is not just the rise of arrogance, it's the death of reflection. And the system we live in accelerates it. Think about how the platforms we use every day are designed. They reward speed, not depth, reaction, not awareness. You're not encouraged to think before you post, you're conditioned to post before you think. In fact, hesitation is punished. If you pause, you fall behind. If you reflect, you miss the wave. So we trade our inner mirrors for instant metrics. We replace our conscience with a comment section. And slowly, the habit of reflection is lost. Ask yourself this: when was the last time you saw someone pause in public and say, "I need to think about that before I speak"? When was the last time you did it yourself? We don't pause anymore because we don't see the value in it. In a culture where everything is about visibility, silence has no currency. And yet, silence was once sacred. In silence, the inner mirror speaks. But now, it's drowned out by the noise of performance. Everyone has a platform. Everyone is broadcasting. And in the rush to be seen, we've forgotten how to see ourselves. The philosophical danger here is immense. When you lose the habit of reflection, you lose the capacity for morality. Because morality is not just a list of rules, it's an internal process. It's a dialogue with the self, a capacity to foresee the consequences of your actions, not just for you, but for others. Without that, you don't have ethics. You have ego. You don't have responsibility. You have reaction. And the scariest part is that this change is happening so gradually, we barely notice it. We think we're evolving, becoming freer, more expressive. But what if we're not evolving? What if we're regressing back into creatures who act first and think later, if ever? Nietzsche warned us about this. He saw the coming of the last man, a being who had no depth, no hunger for greatness, no capacity for shame or reflection. A being who lived for comfort and distraction. And we're becoming that. Slowly, casually, proudly. We laugh at old virtues, restraint, humility, contemplation, and replace them with new idols, clout, virality, dominance. But without the inner mirror, we don't just become shallow, we become dangerous. Because power without reflection is violence. Desire without reflection is addiction. Anger without reflection is destruction. And once those forces are unleashed in a society with no brakes, what happens next is not progress, it's collapse. This collapse doesn't come all at once. It comes in moments. When truth is sacrificed for applause. When dignity is traded for attention. When people stop asking, "Is this right?" and start asking, "Will this get likes?" And those moments accumulate. They form the cultural atmosphere. And eventually, they build a world where shame is extinct, reflection is irrelevant, and the only thing that matters is momentum. But momentum toward what? If we've lost our internal compass, if we've shattered our mirrors, then where are we going? That's the question we must ask. If you stopped broadcasting yourself for a moment and turned inward, what would you see? Would you recognize yourself? Would you like what you see? If not, is there still time to rebuild the mirror before it's too late? These are not easy questions, but they are necessary. Because without self-awareness, without reflection, we are not free. We are slaves to impulse, to the crowd, to the algorithm. And in a world where everyone is reacting and no one is reflecting, who will choose to pause? Who will choose to look inward? The answer must be us. Not because we are better than others, but because we still can. Because the mirror may be cracked, but it's not gone. Because every time you choose silence over noise, thought over impulse, depth over display, you begin to polish that mirror again. And in doing so, you remind others what it means to be human. The theater of the hollow, why we worship performers and ignore the whys. There's a strange paradox unfolding in front of us, one that defines the spiritual sickness of our time. The more hollow a person is, the louder their voice becomes. The more performative they are, the more attention they command. And somehow, in this upside-down hierarchy of values, we have begun to confuse visibility with virtue, charisma with character, and performance with wisdom. We are not just watching the rise of the shameless, we are worshipping them. We are building altars to the emotionally shallow, the intellectually vacant, and the morally unanchored, while the truly wise go unheard, unnoticed, and uninvited. And the tragedy is not just that wisdom is ignored, but that it no longer fits the stage we've built. Because the modern stage, the digital world, the attention economy, the ever-churning social feed is not built to reward wisdom. Wisdom is slow, quiet, often uncomfortable. It asks you to sit with paradox, to question your own assumptions, to delay gratification. But the stage demands spectacle. It rewards speed, certainty, and emotional stimulation. It doesn't ask, is this true? It asks, will this trend? And so the wise are drowned out by the loud, the reflective are mocked by the reactive, and the humble are outshouted by the hysterical. We are not running short of knowledge, we are starving for wisdom. But wisdom can't survive in a culture that only values what can be consumed instantly, shared easily, and sold quickly. Let's be honest, how many of the people we admire today have any real depth, any tested integrity, any moral backbone? Most of them are performers, not just in the literal sense, but in a deeper existential way. They perform identities, emotions, virtue, rage, humor, even authenticity, but it's all a mask. A curated self designed to trigger engagement. And the scariest part, many of them don't even know they're performing anymore. They've confused their mask with their face. And so have we. We applaud the performance, we follow the illusion, and we forget to ask the most basic question: who is this person beyond the lens? And perhaps more importantly, who are we becoming as we consume them? Because this isn't just about them. It's about us. We are the audience. We are the ones filling the theater. We are the ones choosing the hollow over the whole. And every time we reward the superficial, every time we amplify the ridiculous, or every time we scroll past the meaningful to click on the sensational, we participate in the erosion of value. We are not just victims of culture, we are creators of it. And if we don't like what we see, we must first examine what we're feeding. So here's a question you must wrestle with: what do your heroes reveal about you? Not the ones you claim to admire, but the ones you actually watch, share, emulate. Are they wise? Are they grounded? Do they challenge you to be better, or do they give you permission to stay small? We become like the people we praise. And if our role models are hollow, what does that say about the kind of civilization we're building? The wise, for their part, have become exiles. Not because they've disappeared, but because they've been made irrelevant. They don't fit the algorithm. They don't play the game. They speak in sentences, not sound bites. They ask real questions instead of offering empty slogans. And because of that, they are ignored. But civilization has always depended on the few who keep thinking while everyone else is performing. The few who keep asking hard questions while others seek applause. The few who remain rooted while the crowd chases spectacle. That's the quiet strength of wisdom. It persists even when it's unfashionable. It survives in the background, waiting for the moment when the theater collapses and people realize they need something real again. And that moment always comes, because performance always exhausts itself. Spectacle always burns out. The hollow always collapses under its own weight. And when it does, people begin to hunger for depth again, and for truth, for the quiet, inconvenient, untrendy voice that was there all along, ignored, but not extinguished. So the question is, Will you be ready for that moment? Will you be the one who chased the hollow or the one who cultivated depth? Will you be the one who followed the crowd or the one who preserved the light? In a world obsessed with performing, the most radical thing you can do is be real. And in a culture addicted to noise, the wisest thing you can do is listen not just to others, but to the ancient stillness within you that remembers who you are. The last guardians of meaning, why your inner life is now a form of resistance in an age where everything is externalized, where your worth is measured in numbers, where every experience is broadcast, where every moment is filtered through the lens of public consumption. Cultivating an inner life has become an act of rebellion. A quiet, radical resistance against a culture that wants nothing more than to keep you distracted, performative, and hollow. If you've ever felt the weight of modern life pressing in on your soul, if you've sensed that something sacred is being lost in the noise, then you are already one of the last guardians of meaning. And whether you know it or not, your refusal to be consumed by the spectacle may be one of the last things holding civilization up. Because meaning is not found in the feed. It doesn't come from clout or clicks or commentary. Meaning is forged in silence, in solitude, in the slow, difficult, often painful work of listening to your own soul. No one will reward you for it. No one will like your inner development. But this is precisely what makes it sacred. In a world where everyone is hungry for validation, being rooted in something deeper than public opinion is rare and powerful. The world doesn't need more people who are good at getting attention. It needs people who are good at paying attention deeply, patiently, inwardly. Let me ask you, when was the last time you sat with your own thoughts, without distraction, and asked, what kind of life am I really living? Not the life you present to the world, but the one that exists when the phone is off, when the audience is gone, when it's just you and the echo of your own existence. Most people are terrified of that space, because in that space there are no metrics, no applause, just truth and truth. When it's not mediated by performance, it can be uncomfortable. It can strip you down. It can show you the difference between who you are and who you pretend to be. But it also has the power to awaken you. This is why your inner life matters more now than ever. Because everything around you is designed to pull you away from it, or meant to distract you, to flatten you, to turn you into a consumer first, a human second. The more chaotic the world becomes, the more important it is to cultivate stillness, to think for yourself, to feel the weight of your own conscience, to rediscover silence not as a void, but as a doorway, a portal into what is real. And what happens when you do that? You begin to remember timeless things, that dignity is more valuable than popularity, that wisdom is more nourishing than outrage, that beauty is something to behold, not commodify. You begin to see the world not as a stage, but as a sacred mystery. And you stop needing to perform. You stop needing to shout. You stop needing to be seen every moment of every day, because you are finally seen by yourself. And that kind of self-recognition is the foundation of all authentic strength. This is the final truth. Civilizations do not fall because of economics, politics, or war alone. They fall when the people forget how to live from within, when they forget how to listen to the quiet voice of conscience, when they trade meaning for influence, wisdom for trends, soul for image. But they can also be rebuilt one soul at a time, one life anchored in truth, one person who chooses depth over display, silence over spectacle, humility over hype. So if you feel like you don't belong in this world of noise, congratulations, you're not supposed to. You are here to remember what others have forgotten. You are here to protect the sacred. And in doing so, you become a guardian not just of meaning, but of civilization itself. But now go, not louder, but deeper, not faster, but truer, and become the stillness in the storm, and the mirror in the madness, the last one who remembers what it means to be fully human,